stable macroeconomic environment despite all the challenges that face, and will not enter the workplace. Please remind that no new arguments are to put forward at this point. Also, we want to give the time allotted and no need for a group or ask Ms. Bhagwandin to speak.
So I've learned that one of the pivotal points across Bhagwandin. Now let's speak about it, the gas to energy and the funding structure. My opponent argued that the money in which the gas to shore project is being funded is unconstitutional. However, he failed to cite which provision in the Constitution renders it unconstitutional. If you look at the production sharing agreement, again, which was brokered by my opponent's government when they were in government, again, I'm referring to Annex C, which speaks to the accounting procedure of the production sharing agreement. You would see that the financing of something such as the gas pipeline is provided for there to be funded from cost oil. But there's a bigger story to that I want you to understand, which I'll tell you in a minute. So, the fact that the pipeline is funded from cost oil, it is not a circumvention of going to the National Assembly for approval. You've got to understand that the National Assembly public funds that requires the approval before it is expended are funds from the consolidated fund, which is generated from taxes that the country earns. Any withdrawal from the consolidated fund has to be approved firstly by the National Assembly. Cost oil is not funds that is in the consolidated fund. And if you want to make an argument that fund from cost oil should be transferred to the consolidated fund, then it's a little bit of technicality. And the technicality would be a breach in the fiscal terms of the production sharing agreement. Because you can't take costs and transfer it to consolidated fund. What we are earning is the fiscal terms, which is the profit royalty and the 2% royalty. And therefore, you can't, if you're going to take cost oil, then that's going to be like a revenue added on to your royalty and your profit oil, which would be a breach of the fiscal terms. So you can't do that. So one, it is not funds from the consolidated fund, and therefore it is not unconstitutional or anything illegal. But there's an important background that not just people, the country should know, that the gas to shore project and local content was, the oil companies was never favorable to implementing. Where local content is concerned, the oil companies and the former government was never interested in it. The gas to shore project there were efforts being made to lobby against the gas to shore project by the oil companies with this government. And I can speak to that because I was involved I was working in one of the firms, which is a global firm at the time, that wanted to, on behalf of the oil companies, to lobby the government against it. and I played a role in blocking that from happening at the expense of almost getting fired. The gas store project and local content are two major accomplishments on the part of the policymaker of the league, which the company is not happy about, to pursue and to fund it from cross-budget. That means, yes, it's a $1.7 billion one-time cost, the development cost, the capital cost. But the benefit, when you look at our import bill for fuel, our fuel import bill is $800 million. When you look at our savings from fuel imports alone, which is about 1/3 of that, when you look at the savings in household income, the savings at the business sector level, the economic impact, as well as the financial profitability that project will generate, that in itself makes the project feasible. And based on my calculation, when the project is implemented, fully implemented, it's about $1 billion a year in benefits directly and indirectly. The local content brings another benefit. So that's my rebuttal on the gas issue. I think most of the other points that I wanted to rebut I dealt with in my presentation, with poverty and the 153,000 people in poverty. Well, based on the report statistics, we have half of the population who are not willing to work. So obviously that will contribute to the poverty level. So with that, I bring my rebuttal to an end.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much, folks. I hope that we're not putting you to sleep here. Hopefully we can get some liven things up. So I want to start right at the end. Half of the population being unwilling to work. How you know that? How you know that people don't want to work and it's not some other factor? You ask them? Anyway, let me not violate the rules of the debate. My apologies. All right. So, folks, we've heard quite a few different points in Mr. Bhagwandin's initial presentation, and I want to lean into these points and break them apart. He mentioned that we've had a development journey of 30 years. I point out gently that the PPP has been in office. The current government has been in office for 25, 26 of that 30 years, 25 of that 30 years. So that is interesting. I would like to point out that in 2012, the World Bank indicated, after this long development journey that my colleague is pointing to, that Guyana was the second poorest country in CARICOM. That may speak to the effectiveness of the government of the day. That may speak to whether or not having a government that is not reforming its processes as indicated by the IMF is appropriate. That's a question to ask. But one of the things I think we can say is, what exactly is the reason for Guyana underperforming its peers in Latin America and the Caribbean? At least we should be on a similar level, right? And it is not, 1 or 2 points on the performance. You're talking about 59 cents on the dollar we get versus then getting 70 cents on the dollar. That's a big gap. It's not for 1 point below or something. So why is it so bad? First thing, why is it so bad? Second question, which is of course what I need to my presentation. If it's so bad, doesn't that mean that we should do something about it? Does that mean that we should pump money into University of Guyana, hire University of Guyana students, conduct feasibility studies to improve, implement the IMF recommendations? Or is it just that, does it really matter to us if we're underperforming everybody? Not only the Caribbean, I also point out the emerging world in general, we're also underperforming. Now, of course, to that end, I would reiterate my original point that ultimately, despite all of the pleasant things that my learned colleague is pointing to, whether it is the gas ashore, whether it is Somalia, the resuscitation of Somalia, whether it is the creation of the deep water ports, ultimately the debate is about whether Guyana is on the right path to development. Now, if, as I said at the beginning, we are operating under the assumption that a government is willing to develop via incompetence, then I submit that that cannot be the right path to development. It's a path to development. Playing dice, I suppose, is a path to development. Doesn't mean that it's the right path to development. And frankly, I think we can do much better than that. The government needs to acknowledge these issues, spend money on the University of Guyana and help to get it fixed. Now, my learned colleague mentioned 15 to 20 billion US that was required in terms of infrastructure and so on. That implies a loss of between 6 and 8 billion US if we don't reform. Wouldn't you like to have 6 billion US? Wouldn't you like to have 8 billion US? We're just not going to do anything about this. We're going to say things like, this is a no-brainer. You see, and he mentions the gas ashore project. The project increasing cost massively in a short space of time. And your response is, a no-brainer. That's unbelievable to me. And it's unbelievable to me that we're saying that in the context of what I said in my speech of 43% of Guyanese living in poverty according to the UNICEF. How can you say something like that and sleep at night? Folks, now, of course, my opposite number here also mentioned the cost audit and said we have to build capacity. I agree we have to build capacity. But we're going to be conducting many audits over the years. Is there a specific reason that we should be not completing current audits on time when there's billions of US on the line? Is there a specific reason for that? Why can't we build capacity and in the next audit be able to do that? Why do we have to put ourselves in a position to lose? For the first audit, there was a question of 200 million US. If you look at the next audit, you're looking between maybe 800 billion US. I mean, that's like an unbelievable number. In fact, that first audit that he references, government received it all the way in 2021. 2 years we've been waiting on this audit. He said 6 months is not enough. All right, it's 2 years enough. The next thing I want to address here is this question of the financing being provided from cost audit. Now, Exxon can own something, SDM can own something and acquire that via cost audit. But for the government of Guyana to acquire something, it has to pass through our checks and balances. Otherwise, what is the point of the entire political system? What is the point? If you can spend more money before, from cost audit, more money before these funds even reach the sovereign wealth fund, before these funds reach the NRF, then you can spend from the NRF, from the parliamentary process itself, then you have to ask yourself, what even is the point of having a sovereign wealth fund? What even is the point of having a parliament if you're going to spend most of the money before it even gets there? Plus, who is checking these costs if you are funding government infrastructure from cost audit? Because last we checked, didn't we have a problem with auditing? Didn't we have a problem with the release of audits? Didn't the government say, oh, it's okay if we miss the deadline, we're going to audit. So what I'm saying is, not only are you spending billions, you're also taking, according to Christopher Rock, a casual attitude towards auditing the billions you're spending. Unbelievable. It's not $5, it's billions of US. Unbelievable. Now, the other thing that I see that my learned colleague has mentioned, he mentioned that when you look at different dynamics of the pipeline, you can see that it is worthwhile investment and so on. I couldn't agree more because I believe that we should know. I started out this entire thing by saying, we don't know. I started off the entire thing by saying, aren't you suspicious that the government had not seen the Jumpy Bird before it was released? I said you should know. Over the course of this entire conversation, how many times I brought up times the EPA is out, the judge in the case where the EPA is involved regarding offshore oil insurance is saying the EPA didn't even check. So I agree we should check. And it seems that my opponent agrees as well that we should check. The question is, and this is the core question for Guyana, who is it that doesn't believe we should check? Now, as I close off this debate, as I close off my time here in this debate, I would say this. Ultimately, we cannot be looking to move this country forward without taking seriously the challenges that we face. We cannot be looking to put the country at risk without taking seriously those risks. My opponent didn't even address the question of whether we had raised our risks. Something as simple as not checking your insurance. Don't you think that raises a risk? Didn't I say insurance says Egypt and not Guyana? Now, hey, maybe in a court of law there will be some judgment that will be in favor of the Egypt wording, all right? But at least a check. At least I asked a couple of lawyers. That is the approach that you're supposed to take when you're dealing with large sums of money. And it seems to me the government still hasn't quite gotten through its head that this is the real deal, this is the big times, and we got to move forward. The thing that my opponent says, which kind of irks me, is this idea that, I think he said that development does not take place overnight, and the money we're talking about is magic money. Folks, at this moment, Guyana has a higher GDP per capita at purchasing power parity than the UK. For a solid 5 years, I've been saying, we've got to prepare. Are we going to continue to say, oh, there's not much oil money? We can't keep going like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your comments. We will now have a 10-minute break before we commence the debate.
Thank you, everyone. At this point, I'd just like to remind our audience our floor debate will commence when we resume, and I'm encouraging you to think of your questions so that when the time comes, you can ask them. to resume. We have listened to our debaters make their presentations. We've also listened to them give their rebuttals. And at this time, we are opening the floor for the floor debate from the audience. Our moderator will be conducting this bit of debate as well. So I trust you have some interesting questions here this afternoon. Mr. Moderator, over to you.
Thank you very much. So, we now go to questions. And the aim is to practice this session. We try to have at least questions from secondary school, questions from the university, questions from the media, and we try to submit 2 questions for us in the school and have those students. If we start the laptop right there. Please say the name, the question, if possible, and if the question is directed to one debater or both.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. I'm Lowe, I attend the State Stanislaus College. So my question is geared towards the proposing. Now my question is, with the potential windfall from oil revenues, how do you propose an alternative path to development that would offer a powerful economic growth and job creation opportunities for Guyana? Now, what sectors or industries do you believe that can contribute to inclusive economic development?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question. The second part of it, can you just repeat it? You said what steps? I didn't quite catch you.
Which sectors?
Which sectors? All right, thank you very much. So this will allow us, I think, to engage with some elements of the debate and of our argumentation that we haven't really had a chance to touch on. Now, the first thing, as I mentioned, is we need to model out what the potential our revenues will be and make our decisions preparing for a vast array of scenarios. That is core. But one of the things that will this is, if you don't model out the future, you'll find yourself in a lot of, encountering quite a lot of paradoxes, strange situations. As an example, having a higher per capita GDP at purchasing power parity than the UK, basically a higher average income than the United Kingdom, right, if you think of it in simple terms, which is supposed to be a very wealthy country. While at the same time having 43% of poverty. What that means, though, is that we have to, in combination with the fact we have 11 billion barrels of oil, reflect on questions like, should there even be poverty? And in the course of reflecting on those questions, you'll be able to answer a lot of the other development questions. And so, one of the reasons that you hear the coalition speaking at length about people-centered development policy and livable income is not just that they're looking to provide direct cash to people, but rather that alternative mechanism is something that we believe needs to be explored. Now, to be specific, the coalition's policies are not just giveaway cash policies, they're based on research such as the earned income tax credit, such as the Bolsa Familia in Brazil. Policies which, and I have citations here, have raised millions of people out of poverty while simultaneously increasing pass rates in high school, simultaneously increasing the labor force participation rate, which the learned gentleman mentioned, and assisting with things like childhood nutrition and so on. They were able to cut malnutrition by 50% according to the World Bank in Brazil through these policies. And so it is not just that we should give away some of our resources for the sake of dealing with the immediate needs of poverty, but to help us to shift the growth pattern of the country. The way that I think we should best think about this is imagine an asteroid out there in space. We used to think that in order to move this asteroid, let's say it's coming towards Earth, you have to destroy it. But now we know, if you put a little satellite right next to it early enough, we can pull it off course. And so just by influencing small things within our existing structures, we can actually produce the development we're looking for all along, while simultaneously building out infrastructure and so on and so forth. And so it's not, the idea around cash grant policy and so on is not just about poverty alleviation, but about having tangible impact. That's why that has been highlighted. Now, in terms of sectors that are important, well, one of the things I don't say one of the things about, but anyway. Yeah, absolutely. But the key thing here is it's not just sectors. What we have to deal with is this question of total factor productivity. Really, it's a question of productivity. The Cobb-Douglas function, if any of you are economics students, Cobb and Douglas were professors of economics and of math at Amherst College, which I attended, and they developed a function with a factor that accounts for technology. Now, you could invest in a wide range of sectors. If you don't focus on your level of productivity, as an example, in the agriculture sector, you'll end up like Norway, where in the OECD says that in order for their agriculture to survive, they have to subsidize. So, agriculture, but agriculture in a specific way is one. Absolutely. Similarly with manufacturing, once you're thinking about this way, you can get it going. And then I think that there's tremendous potential in the tourism industry for Guyana as well.
Moderator, can I give it 1 minute?
Sure.
You see, there's a difference when you're in government and when you're out of government. When you're out of government, you tend to ramble a lot. When you're in government, it's a different conversation. I'm yet to hear the answer to the question. But my opponent focused a lot of his rebuttal on an insurance policy government that was not signed. But which is more important? An error or something of that which I think is inconsequential when compared to hiding 18 million signing bonus from the nation and circumventing the National Assembly.
An error
Circumventing the National Assembly's approval of $100 billion when you took the government deposit accounts into overdraft. So it's a lot of ramblings versus a lot of substance. The industries, the answer to the student's question is this, and I take the moderator. Somebody said there's no right or wrong answer, but where is the future? Where is the future heading? This future is not only created by us policymakers, but the future is something that is created through innovation. Where is the future jobs? Technology. Where is the future jobs for the economy? The service sector, the manufacturing sector, construction is taking off now, tourism sector. There's a parallel. If you look at the policies of the government, the government wants to have a parallel competitive education, private education and healthcare as well. Not just the public sector, but indeed the private sector to complement that. So that I just wanted to.
Would that be why the
Thank you very much. Could we have a question from the audience? Yes.
My question to you guys
question posed is a brilliant question. And that is not the only focus. Infrastructure is as equally important as well as advancing other aspects, facets of development that complement that in a sustainable manner. There is, if I could urge the student, you could go on the internet and look at the low carbon development strategy. You would see that there is a focus, equal emphasis and focus on building out the low carbon development strategy. One that is being positioned as an asset whereby our natural resources, our forestry resources, 95% forest cover is monetized vis-a-vis the low carbon credit, which will be deployed in developing the hinterland communities. So, and then we have to look at sustainable development in the framework of climate resilience and climate adaptation. We have to move the population away eventually over time from the low coastal areas. And so when you look at the path of development where these projects are undertaking and where the country is moving physically, you would see that this is taking place. We have to invest in drainage and irrigation, sea defense and so forth in the short term, taking into consideration the climate risks to the environment.
Thank you very much. I just want to clarify, you said that it's not withstanding time, that it's not standing up over time? Yeah, absolutely. Just to refer to some of my previous comments, previous framework. If when you spend $1 on a road, you get 59 cents worth of value from that road, you think it's going to stand up? I'll give you another example. If you were buying a big 6 and you pay the amount of the big 6, and the amount you give out 4 instead of 6, is that what we're looking for? Now, we expect a return from our investment in infrastructure. If we start off poorly, then it will impact the return. So when you say sustainable, what happens is that the infrastructure actually deteriorates. On the flip side, when we talk about the proper planning and management, it is to ensure that we see a benefit from that. Those same principles carry over to the other elements, some of the other elements of development, such as in education. And so you may recall me saying that we spent $26 billion pass rate at maths 38%, spent $60 billion pass rate at maths 34%. That's another perfect example of where there's a question being asked as to whether output and outcomes are the same thing. We need to be looking at outcomes, not just spending money and being in development.
Thank you. Do we have a question from University?
Hello, my name is Paul King. I am a student of the economics at the University of Guyana. I'm also a writing for Guyana, so I am media. I would like to pose one question to each of you, if that's okay. Elson, you actually I'll ask one question and perhaps they will go what they do later.
Sure. I will try to give responses to one minute. We are past half of that.
If you ask him, I'll get jealous.
Okay. So my question is with respect to the impact that Guyana's extraordinary development has had on property values. Property values have spiked a lot in the last few years. I'd like you both to talk about your assessment of how the general public has fared with respect to this issue and how it's consistent with the general argument you have made that from your side, Elson, Guyana is on the right path and you and Guyana is on the right path.
Well, I can just start off by saying yes, we've seen a massive expansion in property prices. There's a writer, Thomas Piketty, who highlights that when you see sharp increases in the returns to capital faster even than the economy, what you see is inequality. And so when you see young people complaining that they can't afford these homes, it's because according to economic theory, there should have been an acceleration in inequality in the economy. That, to my mind, is not at all what we're looking for. If you have a measure of development, I don't think you're going to want to see more inequality as your measure of development. This is why it is important for any government to be alert to these issues and to deal with them. You may recall that I tried to push for a high minimum wage last year. It was based on this mathematics.
So it's a consequence of demand and supply. Naturally, if you have a high demand for accommodation, whether it's residential, commercial, or industrial, you're going to have high prices. That's how demand and supply works. And so that is why it's important to push a strong development agenda to reach that point of equilibrium, especially particularly in terms of housing, as well as in the commercial space. The government don't really get involved in building commercial buildings, but to facilitate. There's a lot of in terms of interest to build buildings and so on for commercial purposes. The government need to accommodate that simultaneously. So eventually, you're going to have that equilibrium point.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on someone that is
Good afternoon, so my question is one on continuity, because both of you mentioned about government. And my question is, what specific things that both of you can agree to disagree or agree on will say as a country that we need to focus on? So this generation, current refugee students, to young people who are asking questions, and look forward to outside of the back and forth, that in generations to come, we can live in a country far better than our forebears and parents. Thank you.
So I think what is important for that, very important question for us to ponder on nationally in an apolitical manner, and that is at a political level, trust. Trust in the sense, in my substantive argument, I referenced the 1996 development strategy. That development strategy was not the product of an intern from the United Nations or the sitting government alone or the opposition. There was inclusivity in terms of the stakeholders that were involved in putting that document together. 200 plus stakeholders, including in this current context, the opposition. So I think where political parties have to build that level of trust, and where they have worked together to put together and chart a path, then they need to commit to that regardless of who is in government. There are a few, unfortunately, there's not a lot of this. There's a few examples, very few examples that we can refer to, and one example of recent that I could point to is the Local Content Act. When the government put the local content bill to Parliament, the opposition submitted, I believe, 15 recommendations. I think 10 of them were adopted by the government and it formed the bill. I think if that kind of approach and level of maturity could be applied in every single bill and policy making and development strategy, low carbon development strategy as well, it went haywire on the part of the opposition. The opposition hasn't submitted any comments on the petroleum bill and so on. If that local content bill could be consistent, then I think that would be good for the country in the future.
Thank you for the question. I would say, I know that there is some contention about the government's ability to perform, but I think that across the aisle, we can agree that we should be trying to perform better. Does that make sense? Maybe we won't be able to reach where we'd like to go immediately, but I think that both sides of the aisle can reasonably agree that efforts should be taken to improve, and that through improvement we can see better outcomes for the country.
I would agree that there is scope for improvement in performance always. I'm not saying that performance is perfect, I'm not saying that performance is great. Of course, there are many ways in which we can improve, but more importantly is the collective involvement of the political opposition in a serious way to push the country forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the questions from the audience. Unfortunately, our time has a lot of
I moderated, if I may, I'm happy to.
Yeah, we can take one more, but I don't know if that works for the university.
Sure.
Good afternoon, thank you. My name is Lowe, and I'm a former student of this institution. I want to say that I've seen this working government doing in the days of Kyle Thomas and Walter Rodman. And we had standing room only in this place at the outside of the corridors. All right? I like the fact that we still have such a tradition. In terms of today's event, I want to say that in my estimation, it's a difficult position to defend, and I admire the men, gospel and intellect in trying to defend this position. But when you circumscribe your position over the last 30 years, I think you made it difficult for yourself in this way that in terms of development, I heard you identify a list of obstruction and difficulties and situations that prevented that development. The thing about it though is that most of those were, I'm getting to the question, Okay, the question is this. You mentioned that one of the problems is the under-education of the population and the non-interest in employment amongst the relatively young population. My question to you is, and I think I was speaking over the last 20 years, my question to you is, what deliberate action is put in place or is on a short form being created to re-engage the youth and the population in terms of educating, raising the standard. You mentioned correctly that we have quite state. What is those people about?
Thank you for that question. And if I may say that the question should be geared towards was delivered and debate and growth. And it is not the offensive person. And I don't think that can speak on behalf of the government to address that question. Thank you very much for the questions and the responses. And I now have to over to our
Thank you very much, all. I know you would have wanted a longer time, but we here are on schedule as well, and it really really was entertaining to have you here with us this afternoon. We thank you all for being here, for your contributions, and hopefully when we can, or if we can, we'd be delighted to have you again. But it was an enjoyable afternoon. Thank you to our speakers for their contributions, and hopefully we can see what their arguments are about be put to fruition. Thank you all.